Welcome back to the corner of the internet where noise fades and real stories breathe. You are tuned into Turkish Spotlight Secrets. If the last few weeks have felt like walking through fog, if every scroll brought another chill to your chest, then take a seat and steady your heart. For those who treasure the connection between Gökberk Demirci and the luminous Özge Yağız, the recent days have stretched long and heavy. A tide of speculation tried to smother what makes their bond special. Tonight, though, the weather shifts. This isn't about unnamed sources or the shadows of backroom whispers. It's about a voice that truly matters stepping forward with grace. A voice from within the home, close to the warmth of the family table, spoke with simple certainty and moved the entire conversation. On Turkish Spotlight Secrets, we're diving into that decisive moment, tracing the ripple of words that restored balance, and witnessing how a father's presence can cut through static like sunlight breaking cloud. Before we walk that path together, let me ask you something from the heart. Can love thrive without family standing behind it, or does that blessing seal the promise? If you value these cinematic, heartfelt journeys into the lives you care about, make sure you're subscribed to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. And if you want to support our independent storytelling and join private community chats, the join button is right below. Your support is the reason we can keep the lights warm and the stories honest. Breathe with me now, and listen. To grasp what changed today, we have to first look at the storm we just rode out. It wasn't natural, and it wasn't gentle. For weeks, headlines and timelines poured out a carefully orchestrated script designed to wear down the unity between Gökberk Demirci and Özge Yağız. Every hour seemed to carry a new rumor, envy swelling out of control, career moves eclipsing affection, tension rising until it swallowed the joy. Day after day, glossy spreads and viral posts announced that the fairy tale was fraying, that the final page had turned, that the goodbye had already been whispered in private. It felt relentless. Their careers were portrayed as an immovable barrier, their tender gestures replaced on paper by misunderstandings. Fans, widely and deeply invested in their story, felt fear grow into something weighty. Would repetition become reality? Would the constant echo of lies knock down the door to their private life and break something delicate? It's easy, under that volume, to forget the essentials. Love with roots sunk deep into the ground doesn't snap when wind howls. It learns to bend and rise again. When the night felt deepest, light finally touched the horizon. And it didn't shine from a press office or flood in from a studio's glare. It came from a familiar kitchen, from quiet walls that have heard laughter and worry, from a man who has watched life with patient eyes. The person who changed the tide today wasn't chasing attention. He wasn't performing, and he had nothing to sell. It was Gökberk Demirci's father. A steady figure from another era, he prefers dignity to spectacle, sincerity to noise. For years, he stayed off the stage and away from the loudness. But when he realized that his son's happiness, and the name of the woman his son loves, was being batted around a circus of fantasies, he stood up in the calmest way. He had reached the end of his tolerance for invented drama and stained rumors. He didn't raise his voice, he raised his protection. In a rare, focused conversation meant only to close the book on nonsense, he spoke with a kind of clarity that fills a room without shouting. He said he had listened to enough fabrications on television and couldn't remain aside. He reminded everyone that he knows his son's heart as only a father can. And then he said the line that stilled even the skeptics: Gökberk would never walk away from Özge, she completes his soul. Take a second with that. He didn't label her with a casual title. He chose words that ring like vows. In a culture where the elder's blessing carries moral weight, the father's affirmation resonated louder than any press campaign. It wasn't simply a statement, it was a kind of sacred endorsement. A seal that this love isn't a passing chapter for Gökberk, it is the core of his narrative. And he didn't leave any room for misreadings about family dynamics either. He addressed the cruel whispers that tried to pit Özge against the Demirci household. With gentle insistence, he made her place unmistakable. Özge, he said, isn't merely the woman by Gökberk's side. To them, she is already a daughter. A lovely spirit, clean-hearted, cherished because his son treasures her above all else. Those words didn't just swat away gossip, they opened the door to lineage. To call her a daughter is to make space at the table for every holiday, every memory, every blessing yet to come. It's radical acceptance and quiet joy. This moment reframed everything. It reminded us that real life doesn't happen on a feed, it unfolds in the soft light of evening, around familiar chairs, among people who choose each other again and again. Tell us how you felt when you heard it. Did your shoulders drop? Did you finally feel air in your lungs? Share your thoughts in the comments. We read them all. And if this careful breakdown gives you what you've been missing, tap like so other weary fans can find their way here. If you want to keep us asking the right questions and reporting with care, that join button turns you into part of our inner circle. Thank you for being the power behind these stories. The father's most moving moment didn't arrive as a grand pronouncement, but as a simple memory, one we might never have known if he hadn't opened his heart. He described an instant from the other afternoon, out in the family garden where the day drifts into honeyed light. Picture the leaves touched by gold, the breeze slipping between branches, the hush of a backyard that has seen decades of seasons. On a bench under the trees, two people sat close. He saw their fingers entwined, and he heard the soft cadence of a conversation about what comes next. He noticed how they looked at one another, and in those glances lived the truth of everything. No cameras. No staging. No lines to recite. Just Gökberk and Özge, talking future, eyes shining in that unmistakable way. In that moment, he knew that outside noise could clang and scrape all it wanted, it wouldn't break what they had formed carefully and freely. Their love breathes in the quiet, not the spectacle. The effect of his testimony was instant. A little later, after a long day that had surely stretched his energy thin, cameras found Gökberk Demirci leaving set. You could see the wear of work on him, the gravity of production. But when reporters passed along his father's words, something changed in his face. Witnesses say his eyes warmed and brightened, the hard edges softened. A small smile pushed through the fatigue, and the last week's tension seemed to step off his shoulders. He confirmed what needed no further proof. He called his father his hero, the one who understands him deeper than anyone else on this earth. If his father says he will never leave Özge, Gökberk said, it's because that is simply the truth. He went further, calling Özge his fate and his safe harbor. Refuge. A place he returns to when the world scrapes too loudly at the door. With that, he built a wall not of defense, but of devotion, stone by stone, promise by promise. And what about the woman who has carried herself with poise through this entire storm? When the microphones found Özge Yağız soon after, her quiet happiness could barely be contained. Support from the family she loves into, she said, is worth more than the brightest cover or the loudest trophy. She spoke of her respect for Gökberk's father, of how his wisdom anchors the room when he speaks. She said his blessing filled her with strength. Then she named what they share, a bond that cannot be broken. Not brittle, not conditional, not for show. She pushed the door shut on the cruel theory that home and heart must compete, proving that she isn't a visitor in this story. She is the foundation. But this tale isn't just a handful of quotes outside a studio door. What followed was an evening that felt like exhaling. Our most trusted circles tell us there was a small family dinner, no cameras, no fuss, offered in gratitude to the father who had steadied the narrative with a few careful sentences. Imagine the table dressed with familiar plates, the aroma of comfort food drifting through the room, glasses clinking soft as a lullaby, hands lingering when they meet. Relief filled the space like music. At one point, attention drifted to the head of the table where Gökberk stood to raise his glass. He looked his father in the eyes and thanked him for reminding the world how much he loves this woman. That wasn't an applause-seeking moment. It was a renewed promise spoken in the only theater that matters, where family listens and love nods in agreement. The publications that tried to pry them apart pulled back, tasting the afterbite of their own inventions. The message is clear, Gökberk isn't going anywhere without Özge, and Özge isn't stepping away from Gökberk. As his father wisely put it, he knows his son's heart. And that heart beats steady for her. They are more than a beloved on-screen pairing, more than two successful paths crossing. They are building a household of meaning, one that learns, protects, and celebrates even under pressure. That's what endures. That's what survives the seasons. And what waits ahead? Light, most likely. With a father's blessing and a community that didn't let doubt win, the road opens calm and wide. Perhaps that conversation in the garden hinted at steps they'll take soon, a home that feels permanent, a corner of the city where roots can deepen, a place to return after long days. Whatever shape those plans take, they will stand on ground they defended together during these noisy weeks. Thank you for spending this time with us and honoring the win of truth here on Turkish Spotlight Secrets. If this warmed you, tell us by writing the word star in the comments so we can spot our kindred spirits. And remember, if you want to keep independent storytelling alive, the kind that listens more than it shouts, tapping the join button is the most direct way to help. Until we meet again, trust what grows in silence, not what screams in the wind. Good night from Turkish Spotlight Secrets.